आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदम् माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्तु अनिराकरणं मेस्तु तदात्मनिरते य उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ May all my limbs attain strength. May the body, the mind, all the sensory and motor organs, and the life force become efficient and perfected. All is verily the one without second, infinite, blissful existence itself beyond time and space. Let me never deny this truth of oneness. May this truth never reject me either. May all the virtues needed for this truth to be experienced be with me. Om, peace, peace, peace. Let us try to feel the Brahman, the infinite, all pervading existence itself beyond form, beyond name, beyond time and space. We can meditate on him, on this Brahman, by taking off our form, like we take off our heavy clothes when we enter a warm space. So let us take off the body. The body is taken off. What a wonderful experience. I see I have no birth, no growth, no death, no change. The body was born. The body changes, eventually meeting death. Body is in a location. Freed from the body, I see I am immortal, changeless, everywhere. I am one without second. I have no desire. I have no disease, no sickness. I am ever pure and perfect. Om, peace, peace, peace. So, dear friends, let us begin today's discussion of this great text which presents a path for the enlightenment, liberation, attaining to one's true, immortal, blissful nature through a combination of the path of knowledge and path of devotion. Actually, this text is very useful to see that these two paths are not really uh, completely separate or no watertight compartments between them. And so it is devotion, but there is association of knowledge component to it, and it is knowledge with the devotion uh, as the main component of it. So it is this story that we are going to see today. Actually, this was going on for last two classes, although we haven't come exactly to the main idea, main story as such. But the question that was asked by Parikshit, the king, uh, to Shuka, the sage, who is narrating the story of Bhagavatam, it is as you may recollect, that it is the 7 day time period given to the king, within which now that at the end of which he would be dying with a snake bite. So he was uh, preparing himself for that eventuality by listening to this great scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, the stories of the divine manifestations and how through devotion one attains to the highest. So, we have seen many stories. In fact, the stories make this book very special because the highest truths are given in uh, understandable and very interesting stories. So, one of these is this story of Ajamila, and Parikshita had earlier asked this very important question that pertains to all of us, that what makes us keep on doing all these anti-ideal actions. There is the ideal before us, and then we knowingly that certain things are not helpful to attainment of the ideal, still I keep on faltering again and again, and then thus accumulating sin, so to say. The word sin means only this, that the impressions, and that you do something, it gets microprocessed and forms an impression. And that impression is like the seed has the propensity and potential to again and again come out as the same tree. So it is, therefore, when certain impressions become very powerful, even though we do not want them uh, to manifest as trees, still we see and those things coming up. So we shall see how the answer is given and the story that illustrates the idea. So let us begin. I was getting carried away without starting the opening chant. So let us recite the opening chant. Try to recite as loudly as you can. जन्माद्यस्य यतोऽन्वयादितरत चार्थेष्वभिज्ञस्वराट् तेने ब्रह्महृदाय आदिकवये मुह्यन्ति यत् सूरयः तेजो वारिमृदां यथा विनिमयो यत्र त्रिसर्गो मृषा धाम्ना स्वेन सदा निरस्तकुहकम् सत्यं परं धीमहि. That from whom creation, sustenance and dissolution of the universe take place, who is both the instrumental and material cause of it, who is omniscient, is the only one having self mastery, being the one independent entity who illumined the mind of Brahma with the Vedic revelation, whose wisdom is the wonder of even the greatest sages, in whom the world of the three gunas subsists, just as the combination of materials like fire, water, and earth subsist in their causes without changing their elemental nature, in whose consciousness there is nothing false. On that truth supreme we meditate. So, in reply to Parikshit's question, and we saw last time that the sage Shuka says that all this is while true, the antidote is there, and that is planting the seeds of devotion which will be able to eradicate these impressions. This is a question that gets asked many times, that Well, that itself will also become an impression. Yes, but that impression being uh, uh, destructor or destroyer of the other impressions that needs to be cultivated. I had narrated sometimes that very illuminating incident in this respect that we had uh, when I was in India in our center. Lot of very aggressively growing weed. It would spread everywhere in no time. Every corner in the courtyard, in the garden, in all the surroundings, around sidewalks, every inch was occupied by that. We tried to just uh, pull all that out, but still they would come again and again. So one agricultural scientist who used to come to our center, he told that is not the way. I will give you some other seeds to plant. And these seeds are stronger. And moreover, the uh, plants that grow out of it are usable. So he gave those seeds and told that be patient. It will require, roughly speaking, 5 years for the eradication to take place. Because these plants will grow and they will prevent that weed from growing any further. Gradually, they will take the space of those weeds, but you have to have patience. Don't expect the result today, tomorrow the weeds are gone. No, it's not so fast. Let the seed get its space. Gradually, it will make space for itself. So that is actually exactly what happened. Very surprising, and that was a great lesson for the practice of spiritual disciplines, practice of devotion. That gradually, when you implant these seeds, these so-called, these bad or evil tendencies, their seeds will get uh, eradicated. They will get so subdued that they will not have any chance to put their head up again. So that is the efficacy and prowess of this devotion. And moreover, devotion leads you to enlightenment and the bliss that is our true nature. The other thing, all those other tendencies, they were pushing us into uh, an unending cycle. We saw that it is like moving in the uh, forest again and again, getting lost in that dark forest, no way to come out. And that was the condition that these other impressions of so called enjoyment would push us to. So, therefore, we have to plant these seeds, and then these seeds, that is called the path of devotion. uh, Shuka assures. Now Shuka is considered the epitome, the highest example, uh, the image of that personification of knowledge and renunciation. Both were considered these characteristic features of this sage Shuka. So this Shuka is now giving the advice that how the path of devotion is, without any risks. It is like the uh, first, our Yona is a business professor, so she knows that you have to calculate the risks against the gains, that, yeah, okay, there are risks in this business. Mm. Yeah, so you have to see whether this path of devotion has risks. So Shuka clarifies that there are no risks at all. It is very easy to practice. Narada tells that why it is so easy to practice, because actually the means are quite natural to us. We all know how to love. Means we love. Love is natural tendency in human beings. It is, we seek love, we want to love, and so forth. Love is spontaneous, automatic, natural. So this, in the path of devotion, what one has to do, the job is in a way simple, because there is the love, that very love. When turned towards the Atman, our true nature or God, that gets called devotion. So therefore it is very natural. This is what Narada also stressed in his wonderful aphorisms on devotion. So the path of devotion is thus very natural, spontaneous, very easy to practice, and most suitable for ordinary people. What is the meaning of ordinary people? Those who are afraid or are not habituated to practice the disciplines of, say, yoga, or the practice of intense discernment between real and unreal, permanent and impermanent. It is very difficult to constantly be aware of that, and so an ordinary person is overtaken by ignorance very easily. There is a lack of discernment, and there, again, therefore, there occurs the confusion between the what is right, what is not right, uh, what is permanent and what is impermanent. That is why, although body is impermanent, we take it to be permanent and get attached to it. And not only body, all those further elongations or attachments of the body, to that also we get attached. And this further and further increases our bondage. And we see that our attempt to do this discernment, permanent and impermanent, again and again runs into problem. So therefore, this is the sign of an ordinary person. Again, another very important sign of an ordinary person is inertia. We don't want to give up our position as such. That ignorant position, I know it is not right somehow, but still I do not want to give it up and go for knowledge. So many obstacles are seen, so many problems are perceived, and this is a common tendency that is seen in ordinary people. This is the Newton's first law of motion, called law of inertia, applied to the our mind. It also becomes so inertiatic, and so therefore most these other paths are not suitable for most of us, whereas path of devotion is suitable. It is most suitable. There also, of course, one has to strive, one has to uh, have certain disciplines that to be ingrained, and all that is there. But still, it is of all the paths, it is the constitutionally most natural and easiest for ordinary people, because the love is to be directed to the reality. And there is the gradation also. It is not that immediately it will all. Sometimes a question was asked to me, is it all zero and or 100%, or there are stages in the middle, uh, that I have to be fully worldly or fully illumined? No, it's a journey. So, as the devotion seed is grown, sowed seed of devotion, it grows. Listen to this, Charlie. The seed of devotion, what happens to it? Grows, sprouts, becomes a plant, and becomes a tree, gets laden with all the wonderful fruits. So it does happen. So this is what Shuka has uh, told king. And further he says, if one unites mind with the Lord's lotus feet even once, there is no fear for him or her from the emissaries of death. Mm, This is what is emissaries of death. We all are afraid of death. It is, oh, it will take away everything that I have got. We are attached to all so called possessions. Our body, though it is, having lot of sickness, what is this body? And not really worth getting attached. A bag made of this skin has a lot of this urine and stool and blood and phlegm, bones filled in it. Now, is this something that is worth getting attached to? Not really, but we get attached to it. So, and don't want to let it go. And so, that which is going to take it away, death. And we are scared of death. We know that story Sri Ramakrishna used to tell, that we say when we are troubled in this world because of this, say, age or sickness or all the problems that body has, that, oh, enough, oh Lord, take it now, take me away now. But like one, that lady, that story says, she somehow used to support herself by collecting the dry wood from the forest, and would sell it in the shops, in this on the street. So what happened was that uh, she used to say, now, oh Lord, I cannot carry this burden anymore. Please release me and take me to your abode. I don't want this life anymore. So one day, as it happened that the Lord, while he was passing close by, heard this old woman saying that, and then came there. Hey, why were you calling me? I have come now to pick you up as you were asking me. Come with me. And this lady got scared. but immediately found an excuse. No, no, Lord, you had confusion. We say Lord has confusion and we don't have. So it is so, Lord, you have confusion. What I was calling you, sure, but not to take me. But I'm having become old. It is difficult to lift this basket filled with these dry wood twigs. So I was looking for somebody to keep it on my head so that I can carry it to the street to sell. So please give me a hand and put it on my head. It is a common scene. I don't know if you in US you don't see that kind of scene, but that a basket full of many things and one person can carry it, but to put it on the head requires somebody else to help out. So the two, come on, and then that person goes a long distance with that on the head, no problem. So the old lady was telling, hey, just keep it on my head. And the Lord said, okay, that is. So we are scared of death. But when you have the devotion, you are not scared of death. You get release from that. And now, therefore, a story ensues. I will tell you this inspiring incident. There was a Brahmin named Ajamila. Ajamila living in the city of Kanyakubja. He got involved with a prostitute, gave up all the pious actions enjoined to a Brahmin. Brahmin means there are lot of restrictions so that that person can lead a life of purity and knowledge, holiness. So he has to keep up with the many rituals like meditation, worships, repetition of various sacred mantras. And there are these do's and don't do's. Refrain from all things that could drag the mind down, has to be very selective about the food. Restrictions are there, that and so forth. But the drag of enjoyment, it manifests in a person. And for this Brahmin Ajamila, he as he grew up, he got attracted to a prostitute, got involved with her to such an extent, because these things, they like a python that catches you and then starts and putting you down. So wouldn't let the prey go away. Puts first tightens all its tail and body around that fellow so much. And that fellow has no chance of escaping. So even a crocodile can be, eaten by this python. It is an elephant can get entangled in a python. So it is. So this man got into this attractions, more and more involvement, more and more these you say addictions into it, and it is like falling. Shankaracharya gives the illustration that if you let a ball, say a tennis ball, put it down on the top of a staircase. Now it goes down and down. gaining more and more momentum. Difficult to stop. So this man's life became like that. So it is, let me read some. He adopted for the support of himself and the family. Family means this himself, this prostitute woman, and they had together between them 10 children. So now has to get money to support. So uh, and he went into all the heinous means, such that like highway robbery, gambling, cheating, stealing, and all like that, and lived a life of corruption and of cruelty to living beings, absorbed in fondling the children of that woman. He spent a major part of his life. That is how the life was being spent. They all, and this you can see, that is what happens. That it is that they. So Ajamila took recourse to this dishonest, cruel ways to get money to support himself and his concubine and the 10 children of them. In his terrible attachment to family, he failed to notice the passage of time. Death was stealthily approaching. We all lose sight of you. We say, yeah, there is still time. We do not remember that the death, as such, also it can grab anybody anytime. But then there are the signs when you start growing old, the signs come up that your limbs start losing strength, the hair start becoming gray, and so forth. So instead of seeing that this is the sign that the death is approaching, what happens is we try to clear those signs. That is the common tendency, that, oh, I am losing my teeth. Okay, let me replace them. It is, instead of seeing that this is now the sign of impending death, the hair turning gray. Okay, let me paint that, so that the death will not come to me. Not like that. Only the signs you are pushing away, removing the signs, so that you will not see the death. It is coming. It is very much akin to that one old lady. She had taken that loan, and then uh, after repeated requests to pay the loan, the uh, uh, debtor told that tomorrow morning I am going to come, and if you don't give the money, I have the decree to get your house emptied. I will collect everything from your home and then uh, sell it. And then now the woman was wondering how to now what to do. So she worked out a very intelligent plan. He is coming tomorrow morning. Let me see that the tomorrow doesn't come at all. Ah, tomorrow then the sun rises when this rooster crows. So if I uh, tie this rooster's mouth, it will not be able to crow. And then if the rooster is not crowing, why how? What, Charlie? Will the morning come? According to her, no. Like that, by painting the hair dark doesn't mean that the death will not come. The old age, death, all will come. So this is the sign, In the medical science, it is very much, the symptoms. The symptoms are indicative of a disease. Eradication of the symptom does not mean removal of the disease. So one does not want to look at those signs. And even that thought is not there because uh, all these uh, my family, especially my progeny, the attachment to progeny is so strong, very difficult to get rid of. So this becomes a big bondage, always fondling the children. So it is absorbed in fondling the children of that woman. He spent a major part of his life until he was 88. Not that he stopped that after becoming 88, but then the death was coming. The old man had 10 sons, of whom Narayana, the youngest, was very dear to his parents. The most joyous occupation for that old man was to watch the pranks of that sweetly prattling child, to whom he was so deeply attached. Feeling the child along with him, feeding the child along with himself, making him eat and drink with himself, that foolish man failed to notice the approach of the god of death, completely dominated as he was by the attachment to the child. So, this is a very common story of people who do not see this happening, do not make an attempt to turn that attachment to God, the reality. Attachment to that which is unreal is to be turned to the attachment to that which is real. So, this is the message. That is how we saw that story earlier, the story of Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad. So, Prahlad, uh, near the end of that episode, when Hiranyakashipu got killed, and they all these heavenly angels, they were there, they were all afraid of that terrible form of Narsimha, the lion man. That is the form that God, the Lord Vishnu, assumed, and he was looking such with such ferociousness, and they in general the view was so grotesque, that the entrails of Hiranyakashipu, the big guy, actually they were just spread all in the room. The blood was flowing, uh, all, and they he was looking in terrible, terrifying form. Nobody was daring to go near this Lord in the form of this animal man, Narasimha. So they pushed Prahlad, you go and pacify him. Prahlad had no fear because he loved God. So, in any form that God was welcome to, he could approach, no fear. Love removes fear. And that is why it is very important to note that if one becomes devoted to God, the fear recedes. That is the way to get rid of fear. Otherwise, we are afraid of any sundry thing here and there. So it is, but when he approached that, and then he that God, uh, he caressed this child of his, Prahlada, and then said, "Ask for boon." And what boon Prahlada asked? Swami Vivekananda says that that is the greatest definition of devotion. He says that ya pritiravivekānām vishayeshu anapayini, that very attraction that ordinary people devoid of the discernment, and therefore they what attraction they have? Unstoppable attraction to these sense pleasures, because they are not able to discern and see that it is leading to their destruction. So I want that very love. Swam manusmaratasame. He even doesn't say I want it because he already has it. He says that that very love uh, should never be taken away from me while I keep on thinking of you. Ah, so that is the devotion, the love turned towards God. Otherwise, uh, it is all such an imprisonment, getting caught in these attachments to flesh, and one does not notice that now it is old age, the whole life what one did. Now that very thing again and again becomes a big problem. It is the clouds of the death, and then this the god of death approaching and with a big axe there, is not able to uh, see. It is stealthily means for the one who is completely immersed in this sense enjoyment. Otherwise, the signs are quite apparent, very clear. But for a person attached in the worldly enjoyments, there is no respite. Even if the person becomes old, does not leave these worldly enjoyments. So it is uh, getting retired. So many had told me once they retire, then they are going to devote all time in spiritual pursuit. Right now, they have responsibilities, they have jobs, and all that. Okay, I have really not seen a single person getting devoted to God after retirement alone. It is because all those tendencies are there, and they would go and then uh, uh, expand their liking of playing cards. Now I have ample time. Now let me play cards, or just gather into what is called the seniors club, but not for doing something really good. Maybe some little philanthropic activity, and then just talk of politics and the unending discussion about the health problems, because most of them by that time have many health problems. So they keep on discussing those all the time. There is nothing else to discuss. Sri Ramakrishna on the deathbed almost means was not able to even turn the sides, had become so weak, and still never spoke of any health problem. Always uh, thinking of God. That's it. So this is the ordinary people find it very difficult to get out of these clutches unless they cultivate this devotion. So it is the time is running out, and yet they do not see this. The clock is ticking, time is running out. This clicking of the talk is to be heard. These electronic clocks these days don't tick, but tick it symbolically. Uh, that it is the idea is the time is flying. That it is keep on thinking of that timeless principle. It is therefore you say that he became 88 years of old, did not think of anything but earthly enjoyments, which have become addictions. Now, cannot think, the brain becomes incapable of thinking of anything else. That somehow get up in the morning with the thought, what is there for the breakfast. Not that let me go and meditate, but what is there for the breakfast, and then what other enjoyments I can have today in my life. So all that is gone into that. So this man, so attached to his children, uh, while spending his time, his last days approached. Till that, still that man of little understanding continued to bestow his whole mind on his child, especially the youngest child, Narayana. When the time of death came, he saw before him three fierce figures, that they were the emissaries of the death, emissaries of death. They had approached, and then in fear, there is a fear of death. It is a fear of death. Let me tell you an incident that everybody has it, and when you actually sense death, it unconsciously comes. Uh, One of our very senior Swamis was having that uh, heart attack problem. He had an heart attack, and then the doctor had kept him under medication, and it was told that you should uh, constantly for a few days watch him 24 hours. And how to watch? The doctor told when again the attack comes, he will not be able to say anything. He will be incapable of saying, hey, no. You will see his face. The face will show the uh, fear. Fear of death will be writ on the face. Very characteristic face. I cannot, he said, I cannot describe it anymore. But that is the fear of death that you can see. And it so happened that it was my turn to be there at that time. It was, and we were told also at that time what is to be done, and no time is to be wasted. First, it was shown what injections, what shots are to be given. They were kept always ready, and some pills have to be inserted in mouth. Then come and call the doctor after doing this. Because if you go to call the doctor first, and it is just matter of a minute or so. So first do this, then call doctor. He said, I will come in uh, just less than 5 minutes. I will be here. So it is, and I saw that and then did exactly that. And the doctor came, and so he survived that attack. But the fear of death, it is there in us. And so this is how that in the fear of death. Now, what did he say? Whatever he was terribly attached to. So he called Narayana. Uh, he cried aloud to his boy Narayana, who was playing at some distance away from there. He called him. It is not necessary that at the time of death one will remember God. Many plan like that. God has told that at the time of death I remember. But whatever the uppermost memories are, they take over. So this man called his son, very dear son, hey Narayana, I am dying. Yeah, so it is these emissaries of what happened was hearing the dying man's cry, invoking the sacred name of God. The emissaries of God also came there, emissaries of Vishnu, along with the emissaries of the god of death, Yama. Yama's emissaries and the emissaries of Vishnu also came, while the emissaries of Yama had already put a noose on the neck of this dying man and were uh, carrying his soul as it were. The emissaries of Vishnu came there. No, this is ours. And then the fight between them, argument between them ensued. So it is an interesting part there, how the argument goes. But our today's time is over. So we will have to wait till coming Friday to hear that interesting discussion between the emissaries of the Yama, the Lord of Death, and the emissaries of Vishnu. So let us see how the argument goes and the rationale that ultimately the Vishnu's emissaries they won the court battle as it were. There was a reason back and forth between the two, and so we shall see how that goes. So till then, we shall conclude by chanting our regular last chant, and then if you have any questions, feel free to ask. निगमकल्पतरोर्गलितं फलं शुकमुखादमृतद्रवसंयुतं पिबत भागवतं रसमालयं मुहुरहो रसिका भुवि भावुकाः. O devotees, quaff to intoxication this nectar of the fruit of the tree of Vedas, flowing from the mouth of the great sage Shuka and mixed with the ambrosia from his word. Is there any question? Oh, you have a question, Charlie.
Yeah, two things.
Two things, okay.
First of all, I think fanaticism is a risk of devotion.
Okay, so shall I answer this question? Okay, so fanaticism is a risk in devotion. And yes, Swami Vivekananda, in his book on yoga of bhakti, bhakti yoga or devotion, has mentioned this. But he said that it is only in the initial stage that this risk comes. And that too, if that path of devotion is devoid of the considerations of discernment and detachment. So, if they are accompanying these two factors of the path of knowledge, which Narada prescribes right in the beginning of his uh, uh, practice of devotion, then in that case, that fanaticism is less likely to assume a big proportion. And as one progresses in the devotion, the fanaticism gets replaced by universal love. The greatest example that Sri Ramakrishna has presented is that of Aghoramani or Golaper Ma. She was fanatic, very fanatic. But then gradually, as the devotion increased, it became all uh, full of universal love, universal acceptance.
And the other thing is more important to me, that it seems like bad things happen to good people. So, how do you know that devotion is necessarily going to take away all the fearful things? Because bad things can even happen to good people.
Well, firstly, what is seen to be bad from outside, like the person got robbed of all the money, bad thing, or got a terrible disease, or the bereavements came to that family. And then this is like given that the bad things happening to good people. But then many of these things really turned that man Godwards, turned that person, this whole life Godwards, because these were not really bad things in a way. They were setbacks which made that person think, is this path right? So, uh, this is one answer. Secondly, the bad things, that person may be good uh, for all the appearance. There are the deeds that are not done physically, but there are deeds done in the mind. And as Patanjali, the great psychologist, explains, that whether done by yourself, krita, karita, anumodita, three wonderful words used, that you might have done bad thing, or you might have uh, given that job to somebody. It is give it to somebody that can do that bad thing for you. So, or if you have just uh, agreed that, wow, it was a good thing that the fellow got knocked off. So, it is. So, you didn't do it, you didn't tell anybody to do it, but you consented it's happening. So, in any case, the psychological result is the same, and it will bear its result. So many of us are good in appearance need not always be so good in our mental functions. So, therefore, many the results are according to what is also in the mind, not only in the body. So, it is like that a person can get those. Third thing is that now that person is very good, but what about many bad things that person has done in the past? They also will take the effect, like somebody has now been putting s- saving lot of money and yet is in debt because in the past he has taken lot of loans, lot of money, and therefore now is not having any money, depending on the past uh, deals. So these are the ways that the good people, so called good people, can have the bad things happen to them. First thing, they need not be really bad. Second thing, it is because the bad things were not done physically but mentally. Third thing is that they may not be doing any bad thing now, but previously and past they have done it, and then that effect comes later as well. Thank you. Very good, deep questions. Any other question? Oh, yes, Abhijit has a question.
So, in one of the slides, it was saying that if someone has had, what was it, attached to Lord's feet even once, then there's no fear or even of death. And what does that mean, like being attached to Lord's feet even once?
Even once, yeah. Yeah, that is sounds enigmatic, but it is true that if one has any time got the taste of the love of God, then that taste is so powerful that it will never be fully forgotten. And so, thus will keep on remembering God again and again. So, even if that fellow has remembered it once, that is enough. That yes, I have that impression now. So it is a great saving grace, even if somebody does it once. Mm. So, in fact, this story develops into that later. Yeah. Anybody else has any question here? Hmm? Do you have any questions? Is he up there?
Yes, there's one web question from Shyamalesh
Yes.
Chowdhury.
Yes, Shamalesh.
Okay. Maharaj, referring to your personal experience that you narrated, whether the senior monk had the facial reflection out of fear or the pain of suffering got reflected automatically.
Well, that this reflection was the uh, automatic reflection or reflex of the fear of death. That is not that the person was really consciously or conscientiously afraid of death, but there is this hidden thing there. It is actually a kind of safety measurement put in. There is an alarm where, like in the house, if there is fire, there is fire alarm. So this has been put there. So it is that, when there is this death impending, the alarm rings, so that you will immediately jump into taking some measures to avert it. So this is something that is biologically present there. So this is just a biological expression, uh, and it is for almost all, even if a senior monk, very elevated in awareness, still unconsciously this sign shows up. So that is true. Yeah. I don't know if I have answered your question, but it is like this. Any other question? Is it? Okay. So let us conclude with our closing chant. मुकुंद माधव गोविंद बोल, केशव माधव हरि हरि बोल। मुकुंद माधव गोविंद बोल, केशव माधव हरि हरि बोल। हरि हरि बोल, हरि हरि बोल। हरि हरि बोल, हरि हरि बोल। कृष्ण कृष्ण बोल, कृष्ण कृष्ण बोल। कृष्ण कृष्ण बोल, कृष्ण कृष्ण बोल। मुकुंद माधव गोविंद बोल, केशव माधव हरि हरि बोल। केशव माधव हरि हरि बोल।